Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really delighted to invite Matthew to the show, and he's an entrepreneur coming out of Boston. Today's talk is going to be all about growth and scaling companies. He's an expert in this area. We're going to talk about automation, tech, AI as well, and I'm really happy to have him on the show to add value. So, Matthew, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. As you mentioned, I've been doing a lot in consumer product and consumer growth in high-tech companies like TripAdvisor, where I grew their e-commerce for hotels platform to 200 million run rate. And these days, I've been spending a lot of time rebuilding and replicating those playbooks using AI and automation. So I'm really excited to swap notes.
Yeah, I'm really like I said, you worked for large businesses, companies, and help these companies scale to the hundreds of millions in revenue. And so these days, what are clients coming to you for to help solve their problems? What are they coming to advice for? And how does podcasting appearance help you in that regard?
A bunch of things. I think at the end of the day, I'm an old guy now, as you can tell from the gray in the beard, and I've got a lot of lived experiences. And what businesses, usually software companies or digital businesses, are coming to me is looking for help either growing leadership and or growing the business in times where traditional tactics like SEO and performance marketing are being disrupted by AI search and a whole bunch of other things. Helping companies grow and the leaders within them get to the next level is really what I do.
Interesting. And so moving the conversation forward, when founders and entrepreneurs, business owners want to scale, how do you think about automation in this regard and helping them to scale?
Great question. I think in the old days, which was probably about a year or two ago, right? AI has made the concept of time accelerate itself. But in the old days, you would have a great idea, a problem that you wanted to solve. You would either choose a path of either bootstrapping your exploration into that problem space or raising funds. For folks that chose to raise, they would start by creating a team. We need a person to build the product. We need a person to market the product. We need a person to do X, Y, or Z. And these days, the line between a bootstrapped and a funded company that's growing its team has blurred. Your head of marketing these days can be an agent. Your head of development and engineering these days can be a suite of agents. And so the conversation has shifted from who are the people that we know who can help us on this startup mission to how might we create a suite of AI agents that we can orchestrate to grow the business, whether that's bidding strategies for performance marketing or content production or building the product itself with Claude Code or other AI tools.
It's funny that how you reference the 2 years in AI is the old days. It's just, I find that funny. So when you think about automation, a lot of companies, especially, for example, if you look at Amazon, they laid off 12,000 workers. And it reminds me of this scene in one of the recent Terminators where they're going through a car factory, and it's all automated and it's robots. And there was one interesting story where Elon was talking about the ability to assemble a Tesla car in a matter of minutes, just these robots just putting everything together. How do you balance the push for automation, especially AI, with preserving human judgment and morale in product organizations?
Yeah, great question. I think it starts with ignoring the noise. There's a ton of noise out there, and certainly folks like Elon are contributing to that. But there is a reality in which we live, and we must accept it. And the robots don't do half the stuff that the folks like Elon are talking about. So ignoring the noise and finding the signal out of the noise is really important. How we do that in the teams that I'm a part of is embracing a culture of experimentation. So rather than saying, hey, we're going to fire everyone and just create a bunch of agents, we start small. What is the job that we think we might be able to do with an LLM or an AI agent, and let's start small to learn and test the upper limits of what AI can do for us before we make a big statement or a bold statement. And quite honestly, I think my personal opinion on the matter, for what it's worth, the big companies, the FANG companies like the Amazons of the world, who are laying off massive amounts of people, stating that it's a COVID response or an AI response, there's some things to accept about that, and there are some things that are probably not. It's an easy out, right? It's an easy out to say, hey, we overhired during COVID, so we have to cut all these people and we're going to replace them with AI. Makes a good story. But in my experience, nothing ruins a good story quite like data results. And we'll see what happens in the future. I personally predict that there'll be a lot less bodies being hired in order to scale businesses. So it'll be like a hiring growth problem, not so much a we don't need you anymore and we're all out on the street looking for work because the robots have taken our job. That's what I see happening. And if that proves to be true, it could be another golden era for startups. The barrier to entry in your startup will be a lot lower. And that startup could be something big, like a high-tech company that I'm used to, or it could be something small. Many people want to start their own businesses and see that as a path to independence, whether it's financial or otherwise form of independence. And nowadays we have more tools at our disposal to make that a reality.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of question about the future of work, and it's interesting how the question of what's going to happen to the people that are displaced. Obviously, people say that it's a human touch is very important. The reality is, when you look at it, people are going to lose their jobs, and what's going to happen to those people? For example, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, even truck drivers. Now Tesla's coming out with autonomous trucks that can deliver things. The next question I have for you is Mark Zuckerberg recently stated that he's going to start using AI to replace software engineers and encoders. So how do you see the role of culture evolving when software teams are again going to get displaced and they're scattered, remote, and under pressure to deliver fast?
I still see the near future, let's say 2 to 4 years out, as AI enabling existing engineers to go faster and be more efficient. That's how I see it playing out in reality. The decision to not hire entry-level engineers because that is the skill set that's most easily replaced by AI has already started to prove its inevitable failure. Without junior engineers, how do we get senior engineers 5 to 10 years later? So I think it'll be about less hiring. We won't see these great kind of swings where Amazon and the FANG companies and Meta go out and hire every last computer science engineer that graduated in the US and beyond every single year, only to let them go 2 years later when some of their large corporate bets don't pay off, like the metaverse or what have you. And instead, what we'll see is I believe, more responsible hiring, more hiring of and training both at the undergraduate level as well as at the corporate level of enablement of AI development. Human in the loop is absolutely going to be, in my opinion, part of the environment or the ecosystem for the next couple of years. And again, I see it as, hey, if there are more comp sci folks out there, more engineers, more tech folks, because Meta's not hiring them all, that is actually a boon to the rest of the pyramid, right? If you consider FANG companies as owning all of the resources, which they often do, and now that starts to be less of a competitive factor to mid-market companies like a TripAdvisor was. TripAdvisor was not and is not a very large company by comparison. But yet when I was there, we were competing on salaries with these FANG companies. And that really hurt our growth. So I see AI as a way to democratize talent and make it more efficient. Democratize talent acquisition, I guess is what I really meant to say.
The next question I have for you is, because we've been talking a lot about tech and startups, but what about, for example, industries that are already established? For example, healthcare, it's this big behemoth, and just costs are just skyrocketing. and AI and automation are here to destroy the waste and the excess and the inefficiency. So what learning from the lessons that you learned from scaling TripAdvisor and EverQuote, how do you take these lessons and apply them to big behemoth industries that are ripe for disruption, such as healthcare?
I think the thing is to watch out for. The watch out is that certain industries are heavily regulated, and certainly that is the medical industry. So bringing AI and any kind of disruptive technology into an unregulated big business is a lot easier than changing it in healthcare. I am not a health tech guy. I don't have a ton of experience in it. The little experience I've had in that space has taught me to stay away because of how complicated it really is. But in industries like health, where you have an energy as well, I spent some time in an energy business. You have large established incumbents with incredibly deep entrenched infrastructure. And the combination of that plus regulation and government policy makes the window for disruption a little bit smaller. Then when you layer on the concept of your money or your life, like an industry that impacts your money or your life, the move to just rush AI through and, as I mentioned earlier, embrace this culture of experimentation. Hey, let's find out what happens. That gets a little tricky if what we're talking about is patient notes, patient care that will result in someone's money or their, in this case, life being impacted. I don't think embracing a culture of experimentation is what I would like if I was a patient. So bringing these technologies in responsibly and slowly is what we expect out of our healthcare industry and on the government that's supposed to protect us. And I couldn't tell you exactly what's the best path to do that. I'll leave that for smarter folks.
Yeah, I love how you stated the government is supposed to protect us. That's an ironic statement, but what's the real cost of overthinking decisions, and how do you build teams that make bold calls instead of paralysis by analysis?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that already. Creating a culture where experimentation is not only accepted, but is the norm, in embracing this culture of the experiments that we make are in the pursuit of learning what will happen. These are important ingredients to enabling folks to try new things. I've been part of teams recently that still see AI and LLMs as a thing to avoid because it's cheating, right? Oh, I didn't write the spec myself. I had AI write it. Oh, geez, I better not tell my boss because then I won't be valued anymore. We need to flip the script on that. And the best way to do that is celebrate those early adopters within your team or your org that try something new, and celebrate the folks who try something new and it doesn't work. Hey, it's okay to make a mistake, but let's try not to make the same mistake twice. If you can build that culture, that feeling within your organization, then whether it's AI or any other disruptive idea, that will bring it to light. And again, how we do that in the healthcare space, that one's a head scratcher to me. Maybe the robots will help us with that one.
Yeah, it's interesting because Amazon actually tried to get into healthcare 10 years ago, and they had to, through various startups, they had to close down because it was just so complicated and so much bureaucracy and regulation and just so many incumbents.
I'm very aware of that move that they made with Berkshire, and JP Morgan, I believe, was also involved in that. It was based here in the Boston area where I'm located. And I think that is an insightful point that you just raised. You hit the nail on the head that if those powerhouses of industry, and I can't remember the exact person they brought on to lead it, but he was a doctor, is a really serious dude. And you get a great backing team with a strong operator, and they couldn't make it. Geez, that doesn't bode well for regular mortals like you and me if we're trying to get into that space. But that was a bit of a cautionary tale. Thanks for raising that one.
Yeah. And I think recently, just what's interesting is if you look at now, Amazon's getting into telehealth, which is starting to, and then also they have a home delivery pharmacy, and you have Mark Cuban's cost. They're slowly eating away at kind of the margins, and eventually, but there was a startling statistic that a majority of healthcare startups, they just fail because they just can't get through the bureaucracy. It's just so many, there's like red tape. And of course, the insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, they love that because they can stay in business forever. The other thing you mentioned was you were talking about, you're alluding to growth hacks and earned growth. And what does earned growth really look like in a marketplace, and why do most attempts at growth hacks eventually stall?
Yeah. Simply put, many folks are looking for a quick win and a quick fix and a shortcut to not only revenue growth, but sustained revenue growth. And when I say that growth is not hacked, it's earned, is sure, the tactics of experimentation that are inherent in growth hacking are absolutely important to unlock learnings. But at the end of the day, if those do not support a true value delivery of your product or service that people see as valuable, they're not going to trade their value, which in this case is their money, for the value that you supposedly provide them. It's as simple as that. You need to have a great product or service that solves a fundamental problem. And then after that, or in parallel to that, is the problem of getting people to learn about it, know your customers to learn about it, know about it, and want it. And that's where growth hacking can help. I have seen teams that take it to the illogical extreme in their growth hacking, and they're like, hey, click here to get a free Cadillac. And when that doesn't actually happen on the other side, that's not going to really translate into sustained growth. So you need to earn growth by winning customers' trust, keeping that trust, and delivering what you said you were going to deliver from your product or service. And then you can figure out in parallel ways to reduce the friction for your potential customers to experience that value. And that's really where growth hacking combined with great product development, strategic product development, or service offerings can really unlock your growth. And that's earned one customer at a time.
I love that. Final question for you is, before the internet days and before the smartphones and now socials and now AI, search, and all these kind of the foundations of all their current fame companies, before it was just build a company, raise money, scale it, take forever. Are these principles still tried and true, or are the startups of the next generation, you can basically go to ChatGPT and write a startup plan in less than a minute and form $1 billion company?
But I think both could be somewhat true at the same time. If we look at AI as a tool to, in this particular case, a ChatGPT or a chatbot as a mechanism for helping a founding team organize their thoughts, unlock a little bit of efficiency in creating pitches, proposals, emails, decks, whatever, what have you. Sure, that's the case. But there are absolutely some startups that require capital. I don't think that there is a world where there is no such thing as a highly capitalized early startup. It really depends on what problem is you're trying to solve. For startups like, let's say, a listings website, such as an Angie's List or a Thumbtack or even a TripAdvisor, I think those companies are ripe for disruption. They're taking information that widely exists, usually on the internet, and kind of packaging that up in a low friction way to help buyers find the solution they want. But there are other startups working on things like precious metal extraction, or rare earth metals extraction processes that you can't use ChatGPT to do that. So hard tech is, I think, what those are referred to. Hard tech will require a similar kind of playbook to the playbook of old, and it'll actually probably deliver much more value on the other side if we can solve these hard tech problems. Interesting.
How can people connect with you and learn more from you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. You can always find me online. I'm at MatthewMamet.com, and also I'm on LinkedIn. And I love having conversations like this. And so feel free to reach out if you're interested to follow up with more, and we can take it from there. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on, and I enjoyed this conversation.
Same here. Have a great one.